Now, look, what is it about the Prime Minister and his pathological inability to tell the truth? He's been at it again over this whole saga of the return to Australia of the so-called ISIS brides with their children, even though they'd left to live amongst an Islamist insurgency directed at countries like Australia. When this matter was first reported, the Prime Minister repeatedly claimed that there was nothing to see here, telling Parliament that reports that ISIS brides were being assisted to return were, quote, not accurate.
What actions has your government taken to guarantee the safety of Australians if these people return?
Those reports are not accurate.
Now, in Senate estimates yesterday, and I showed you this last night, there was a whole lot of obfuscation coming both from officials at the table but also the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong.
How many of the ISIS brides are now in Australia?
We would not provide commentary on individual cases.
Senator Wong, is the Prime Minister aware of how many ISIS brides are now in Australia?
I will take that on notice.
Now, let's never forget that these women, so-called brides, I hate that term because they knew absolutely what they were doing. They were not naive. They left Australia and they went to live under an apocalyptic Islamist caliphate that routinely murdered not only non-Muslims but other Muslims too, who rejected Islamic State's push to take over the Middle East first, but then, of course, the wider Western world. Today, this issue, though, was back front and centre.
The government has said that they have not provided assistance to returning ISIS brides. How does the government define assistance?
Repatriation assistance.
Does the Prime Minister consider providing citizenship by descent to be assistance?
The government the government has been clear that we are not providing assistance to repatriate, and there is no plan to repatriate these individuals.
So it is not assisting someone to return to Australia to provide them with the documents they need to enter Australia?
Well, it's
You can see it for what it is. I mean, that is a joke. The government's tried to claim all the way along that they have no role or responsibility here because they did not or would not assist to repatriate these women or their foreign-born children. And they're hanging their hat on the fanciful definition of repatriate, meaning that because they didn't organise their flights, they had no hand in their return. Here's the Minister in the House today, Tony Burke.
First of all, as the Prime Minister's made clear, there has been no repatriation.
Now, that's a lie. Just watch this comical exchange as the head of the Home Affairs Department came under fire today on this very point.
Have any applications for citizenship by descent been processed for people in Syria?
as a matter of fact.
So, Senator, the department has received applications and processed them consistent with our legislative requirements.
Great, thank you. How many?
Senator, in relation to the cohort that we're discussing, we processed 2 applications.
Now, that's the head of the Home Affairs Department, and all of these pauses are happening in all of that testimony in Senate estimates because they don't want you to know what's really going on. I'm not putting it on the officials here. This is the government who doesn't want you to know what's really going on. Now, having been out of the country for a decade or more, any passport that these women might have had that they travelled to Islamic State with would have long expired. And as for their foreign-born children, the so-called cubs of the caliphate as they were known, they would never have had an Australian passport, nor indeed would they have had citizenship, because the law in Australia does not automatically confer citizenship if a child is born overseas, even if it's born to an Australian, meaning that the federal government would have to have stepped in. So why the secrecy? Why is everyone going out of their way to dodge straight answers to simple questions like this? So were there security checks done, Minister? And who did them? How extensive were the checks? Are we sure these children are the offspring of these Australian women? Are we sure that they themselves have not been terrorist fighters, given that some may well be of fighting age now, particularly the boys? Today in Question Time, the Minister in this area, Tony Burke, almost slipped up on this very point. Now, he knows that anyone joining a listed terror organisation under Australian law is open to investigation and likely criminal charges upon returning to Australia. Have a listen.
What we have is a situation where we have a number of Australian citizens who made a terrible decision, an absolutely dreadful decision, to go off and join join others who were involved in what has been described as one of the most horrific organisations that the world has seen.
Did you watch that? Did you watch that? He said, they joined, then he paused. Not Islamic State, he said. I believe that's where he was headed. But he said, but they joined others overseas. He caught himself. Now, how do we even know the truth of who they really are, what they really did, and whether they are actually safe to return and live amongst us? Remember, this is what a former senior federal police superintendent said on my show this week about the return of these women.
The chances of us making a robust security assessment on any of these people while in Syria, I would say, is nil. We've probably made the best assessment we can while they were in detention in Lebanon. However, that's a very, very different circumstance to coming back and living in a free society like Australia.
Trust me on this, believe the police, not the politicians. In Britain, not even Labor's Keir Starmer will allow their ISIS brides to return. And yet here our Labor government won't even tell us if these women are under surveillance or if there's any consideration of a control order to monitor any of them or their children. If the government thinks these people don't pose a risk, then tell us that. If they think they do, then they must tell us what they have done to mitigate it. Yet again, this is a government that will keep Australians in the dark and that does not take national security seriously.